This is a brief tutorial about the game Akropolis as played on Board Game Arena. Akropolis is a fairly new game that has its players building a Greek city by drafting tiles and placing them in their individual cities. Everyone has their own. This is the pile it's drafted from, and as you grow, the different colored tiles will score you different points based on those colors, how they score, and the number of stars for each color that you get. First of all, this is the initial set of tiles that can be drafted, and you can see underneath there's a specific cost of stone to draft that tile. Everybody starts with a certain amount of stone based on their player order. First player only gets 1, 2, 3, 4 as it goes to the player order. These will be drafted until there is 1 left. As they're drafted, they slide down and get cheap. The other ones slide down and get cheaper to the left. But when there's only 1 left, then the new stack will refill, and the next person will have access to all of those new tiles. As soon as all of the stacks have been filled in and there's only 1 tile remaining, the game ends. Now this is a 4-player game, so there are 6 tiles shown and 11 stacks. That will change if it's a 2 or a 3-player game. But this is what it looks like in a 4-player. When you take a tile, you place it somewhere on your city. The rules are it has to be touching one of the current spots on your city, one of the sides of one of the tiles, and one of the hexes in your city. You can also stack things on top of each other. So if there is room, and the rules for that are you can't overhang any hexes. So right now I couldn't stack anything here because there's no spot that would fit the 3 hexes in that shape, so without something hanging over like here. But later as you go, you can stack things on top of each other. When you do that, again, there can't be anything overhanging, and you can't completely cover a single tile with another single tile. It has to cover at least 2 tiles. It has to overlap with at least 2 tiles in the level below it. So you take a tile, pay the stone cost, put it in your city, following those rules. That's how the game goes. Now, there are 3 different types of hexes on each of these tiles. There are first quarries. You start out with a few quarries. You can see all of these gray piles are quarries. Quarries do not give you any points at the end of the game. However, if you ever cover a quarry with another tile, you get a stone for every quarry that you cover. So if I had 3 quarries here and I covered it, like let's say I took this tile and I put it here, so I had 1, 2, 3, and then I covered it, all 3 of those with another tile, I would get 3 stone, which is helpful again, both to draft the tiles that you want. Also, extra stone is points at the end of the game. So there's quarries, there are plazas, and there are districts. The plazas are the ones with stars in them, and the districts are the ones with just the colors and no stars with them. And each district has a specific type and a specific scoring condition. Those scoring conditions are here. So for example, the blue ones, you take your largest group of blue houses, these are houses, these districts, not including the plazas. The plazas don't count towards any of the scoring conditions. They just exist to show how those are scored. They're basically multipliers. We'll get to that in a second. Anyway, you take your largest group of blues at the end of the game, and then you multiply that by the number of blue stars. Everybody starts with 1 blue star, but as you get more, there are 7 other hexes throughout these tiles that have a blue star on them. And so if I had 10 blue tiles in my largest grouping of them and 2 stars throughout my city, that would be 10 times 2, 20 points at the end of the game. And you can see these multipliers here are showing you as you are building where your points are. Now it's important to note, the points only count at the end of the game. So if you cover things up, or if you break some of the scoring rules later, like if I had a huge group of 10 blue and then I put a tile on top that split them into 2 different groups, that group of 10 would no longer count. It would take my next largest group. So you're looking at your final city when you're figuring out all of these scoring. So like blue, it's looking at your largest grouping. Yellow, in order to score yellow, it just has to not be next to another yellow. Reds have to be on the very outer edge of your city. Purples have to be completely surrounded. No blank spaces around them. It doesn't matter what level the tiles are around it, but it can't be next to any blanks. And the greens don't have any placement conditions, but there are much fewer of them. You can see there are only 8 green hexes, whereas there are 36 blue hexes. You can see these plaza districts. For the blue ones, they're always going to be 1s, but yellow, red, and yellow, red, and purple are always going to have 2 stars on them, and the green ones have 3 stars on them. You can see here's a yellow one with 2 stars on it. The other thing to note about scoring additions is that the level of the tile matters as well. So if a blue tile would score 1 point as part of that largest group, when it's on the first level, it actually scores 2 points when it's on the second level, 3 points on the third level. You typically won't see anything higher than that, but each level up will get you extra points for each of the tiles on that level. And so like if I had a group of 10 blue and 3 of them were on level 2 and the rest were on level 1, it wouldn't be worth 10 points, it would be worth 13 points, because each of those ones on level 2 would get an extra point. And again, you take that base value and you multiply it times the number of stars. Those are the basic rules for the game. Let me skip to a later portion so I can see it, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the interface here on BGA, because it's a physical game that's difficult to replicate in a digital form, but they did a pretty good job of it. Okay, here we are about halfway through the game. You can see my city has started to grow, and we have 6 stacks remaining. It used to be 11. Others have done their own stacking and their own types of tiling and building of their city. A couple things to note here. You can see I've started my blue group here. They're on different levels, but they still count. So my group of blue is 3 currently, but I have 2 stars, so 3 times 2 would be 6, except 2 of these are on higher levels. So it's actually 2, 3, 4, 5 times 2 is 10, which is what you see over here. Notice though, I have these yellows. They're all correct for scoring conditions, but because I don't have any yellow stars, they don't count for anything. You can see 0 times 3 is 0 there. But I do have one for the red, and I do have some for the purple. You can see here I've got these quarries. This quarry set up right here is perfect to lay something on it, because as soon as I do, I get 3 stone for laying over those quarries. Note on the purple, they can be touching each other. That's not and also the red. It's just the yellow that can't be touching each other. So as long as they are surrounded by things on all sides. You can tell that one of the players here has started to go all in on the red, and that turned out to be a really good strategy for them. And they ended up winning because of that. They were able to really rack up those red points, whereas a lot of us were trying to do a little bit of everything. So there is some benefit to at least finding one color to really focus in on, though you don't want to ignore all of the other colors, because you want to be tactical based on what's there. So the player before me has these 2 options. Note when they pick one, there will only be 1 left, and so the stack will refill, like so. And now I have these options. I can't afford for this one and this one because I only have 3 stone, but I can choose from any of these. All right, let's talk a little bit about the interface. So here are some bookmarks for you. This shows the top level, but then you can see anybody else's city. Down here is a little reminder of the scoring conditions, but you can certainly minimize that to get out of the way. But it also tells you the total number of each of the hexes within the game that will be seen, and all of them will be seen. There is, like we showed before, all of the scoring that's shown for each of the players. And then there's this here that allows you to adjust your map. And this is good for if you're using it on mobile because you don't have the right click and the scroll wheel that you would. So normally on the desktop you can scroll in and out. And note that when you do it with one, it does it with everybody's. But you can also right click and look at it in a three-dimensional, drag it and right click in three-dimensional. Again, if you don't have the PC interface, you can use this to look at it in a three-dimensional way. So you can tell, wait, are these all on the same level? Can I put something right here? And I look at it, yes, they are. So I'm good to put something there on that quarry. And then this lets you move it over as well. The trickiest part, though, that we found was when you place a tile, you might need to rotate it in the right setting. You want it to be exactly in the right rotation that you want and connected in the same way. And so the way to do that is you first select the tile, but when you select the tile, you pick the hex on the tile, the very specific hex. Then you pick the hex on where you would like it to go. And that will give you then some rotation options. But that's the important thing to always remember. Select the hex that you want and then where you want that hex to go. And then you can rotate around it. You can't flip the colors, but you can rotate it in whatever direction you want. So for this next one, I'm going to select this hex. And so if I select, let's say I selected that one, or I could have selected any of these. Let's say I selected this green here. Then I want to do this overlap, so I'll stick it there. Now that's not how I wanted to overlap, but you can see this little rotation here. Now, you could click here, I believe, to rotate, but it's much easier to click it here. Then I can rotate it until it fits over those three quarries that I want. Or if I wanted to place it here instead, you can change the placement. So I want to place it here, and then I rotate it as well. Here, let me you can see it'll show you what's under it. And again, you can click any one of those hexes, but maybe I want to put it over here. And then it'll let me rotate it in the two possible options. Or again, I can't put it over here because it would only cover one. I could put it, see how these little blue squares are all the other possible places here. I could put it out here, and then I can rotate it in those different directions how I wanted it to. But again, I've chosen that green one. If I want to place it using the blue one instead, then I can say, all right, I want the blue one, and place it there. And it gives me the different options for placing it. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but as long as you remember, select the hex here first, then select where you want that individual hex to end up, it should work. And then if you just keep rotating it, it'll get in the right spot. And then you confirm. Let's see. I ended up placing it like this. I messed up. I realized I messed up and put these two yellows together when the yellows can't be touching each other. So now all of a sudden I only have two yellows that score. However, I was able to fix that later by expanding this out and covering this yellow. Remember, that's important. It only matters how it ends at the end of the game, which I will show you in just a minute. All right, here are the final turns of the game. There are no more stacks remaining, so as soon as two more tiles are chosen, the game will end. You can see here I kind of went all in on my big blue grouping right here. Unfortunately, I couldn't afford this one, so I took this one, I believe, so that I could increase the blue, but also cover up some of these and get some stone, because remember, stone is points at the end of the game. And that ended up getting me second place. First place went to this player here, who went all out on the red barracks, and we didn't realize they had so many point totals for them. Notice there are only 6 of these plazas for red, and this person got 3 of them. And again, these numbers will change based on player numbers, but they had a bit of a monopoly on that, and so they ended up with 72 points just in red. So you can see it did, like, I tried to get a little bit of everything, then I started focusing really on blue, and that helped. Others, when they focused on one, it helped them as well. This person focused on a purple. But as soon as I put my tile there, again, so I could get a little bit of points, even though I covered up one of my blue, I was able to get quarry or stone out of that, which gave me points as well, and made a bit of a difference. Final player made their choice, and that is the end of the game. There is a variant that adds other scoring conditions for that. You can use one or more based on each of the colors. You don't have to use all of them. You can just use individual alternate scorings. It basically doubles those values, but doesn't change any of the other rules. But this is the basic play of Akropolis, and hopefully that's helpful. Thanks.